weekly, it's the weekly, it's the weekly, it's the weekly Gulp.
Hey everybody, welcome to the weekly Gulp. Thank you as always for making us part of your daily routine, if that is in fact what we are. I'm Ben and we've got John with us.
Hey there everybody.
And we're going to talk with our special guest coming up in a little bit about the Jurassic World Dominion. I'm sure I've seen how split people are on that movie, but we'll get to that. First off, John, good time to talk about this. So the weekend box, you have the soft weekend box office numbers on Sunday. It always gets altered a little bit on Monday and even a little bit going into Tuesday when the numbers finally come in. But my God, we've already done a show on this, but Top Gun Maverick, like just bringing up the box office of this movie. First of all, 393 million and a half domestically, sir. This is going to be $1 billion movie, John. I think
right on the verge of 400.
Dude, $400 million for a 36-year removed sequel to a real. I watched the original Top Gun the other night, and it's still so great in my opinion. But
what was the? Do you know what the box office of the original was? Like 250 or something?
It was very high. It did really well. For if you adjusted it for inflation, it would be a really big blockbuster movie. I can't remember it. I looked at it a few weeks ago, but it did do extremely well.
I want to say it's probably like 250, and that was amazing. That was great for mid 80s. That was a huge, massive hit. But I want to say it's maybe like, domestically 250, which is just interesting the way the box office has grown at this point. Obviously, inflation is a huge part of that. We're living through that every day.
Well, you remember how cheap it was to go to a movie back then? It was $3.75, dude.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Imagine like $3.75 to see a movie. If you adjust that for inflation, that's $1 billion movie.
Yeah, it's very true.
But the fact that Top Gun Maverick in its second week, 29% drop off. That's almost unheard of, dude. That's I think it's only number 2 to 1 movie in history to only have a drop off that small. And then this weekend, the third weekend, 44% drop off. Dude, Marvel movies have 60 to 70% drop offs on their second week. It's insane. It's a word of mouth movie. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, very few movies. I mean, you'd have to go back to the 80s when box office was like that, where a movie would actually, word of mouth was really important back then, even though it wasn't spread by the internet. But like if a movie was a hit, everybody was talking about it and everybody wanted to go see that. But you had weeks to go see it. And the box office didn't really dip because there wasn't a new thing, every week, a new blockbuster. But I just love to see box office like this. Like it takes me back to those days where a movie dominated, a movie that deserved to dominate. That was kind of a fun thing for me, working at the movie theaters or spending so much time over the years going to the movie theaters, movie hopping or whatever I was doing. I just love to see a movie that deserves to make this kind of money, instead of shitty movies like a Fast and the Furious or whatever. Just make this kind of money. And so I'm ecstatic about what it's doing at the box office, and only a movie like this deserves to do it. Other movies, like whatever the next Marvel piece of shit, they'll make their money in their opening weekend and they'll peter out like they always do. I mean, they still make a ton, but I don't know. They're not the quality of other movies like Top Gun.
Well, you finally got a chance to see this movie, and I was so happy. Dude, it took all my energy to leave that seat because I got to watch for my second time with you, but I had to leave because it was getting late. But I was so happy to go back in there and at least watch the first third again with you. But I want to know, it sounds like you haven't, I love it that you haven't told me anything about your thoughts because you wanted to wait for the show. And I love that because now I get to hear, it sounds like you're positive, but I'm going to let you take the floor because I want to know what you thought of the movie.
Well, to be honest, if we're going to be honest right up front here, I'm a little bit mixed on it, but maybe it was talked up a little bit because I didn't get to see it for about 2 weeks after it came out. So there was a lot of hype. There wasn't really a disappointment factor at all in the movie. Like it did everything I want a sequel to Top Gun, I guess, to be. So let me just start with positives, because I'll talk about what makes it a mix for me. But positive, super exciting. Just, I love all the aerial photography. That was supposed to be the selling point of the movie, and it certainly is for me. But you still get a good movie all around. It's not just like a gimmick or whatever. Not that Tom Cruise's stunts these days are just gimmicks to get you into the theater, but there's a little bit of that factor of like, it's hyped up of what is Tom Cruise going to do in this movie, and is there really a good movie around it? I didn't really feel that for like the last Mission Impossible. It was an all right movie, but I didn't love it the way other people did. This one, a good movie, good writing, good characters brought into this, great continuation of a story that we had a long time ago, but they do a great job of filling in the time gap of over 35 years, I guess. So yeah, I think it was a great time at the theater, and a good sequel, and everything I wanted it to be. Sorry, I'm pushing my son.
Well,
so
that's great praise. I know you're very detailed with your film critiques and stuff like that. It's good to hear that because I agree. You said good writing. I totally agree. Sometimes simple movies, people don't think it's good writing because it's simple. No, that's the opposite. If it's simple but it relays its story well, that's still good writing.
Yeah, I appreciate little things that they were able to pull off. I mean, well, maybe it's not a small thing, but stuff like Val Kilmer's appearance in the movie. I was actually surprised. I thought I didn't know that they actually got him back in it, because I had known that he was battling this cancer for a while now, and I thought during the filming of this movie he was already at a stage where he wasn't really making movies anymore. So it was very surprising to me that he actually showed up. I thought for half the movie that they were just going to kind of play the gimmick of them texting each other, and there was a photo of him, and like you wouldn't actually see him on screen. So
I was sitting there. I don't want to cut you off, but I was sitting there with you in the theater when you saw the text message, and that you said the exact same thing that me and my Navy buddy did when we saw it for the first time. Like, did you ever think you would see Iceman and Maverick texting each other? And you said the same thing.
No, that is a sign that we're in the 21st century film.
But it's also a good way to work his character into the story, to give him almost a scene in and of itself.
Well, and especially knowing, what the real story of what's gone on with Val Kilmer, the way that they were able to fold in his real life and where he's at. I hope we have Val Kilmer around for a long time at this point, but it was already a touching tribute to his career and the fact that we won't get performances like we used to get out of Val Kilmer right now. So
they couldn't have done that any better, though.
Yeah. So every scene that was kind of tied to Iceman, other than I do kind of find it. So like when I talk about mixed stuff, it's kind of like the cheese aspect of the first film that works in the 80s. When it's prevalent in the new film, sometimes it doesn't work as well for me. Like calling each other ice still just seems a little gimmicky. Like I don't know what his
that's
real name
definitely
is,
a military thing, though, especially amongst pilots. So that is
yeah.
You just haven't seen much of it since the 80s on screen, I guess.
Yeah. I get that. I'm certainly not a military man, so I get that you might still hold on to that forever or whatever. So that's a small gripe, but I loved all the Val Kilmer stuff. Great tribute, even with how his character, how they treat his character all throughout the whole film. Poignant stuff. I love it. Great scenes with Tom Cruise there too. Like the main scene where he comes over to his house. Kilmer doesn't get to say but like 2 lines, but the acting between the both of them is pretty powerful in that scene, and that's a big difference, I think, from this film to the original film. This one has a lot more drama, just kind of moments to let the actors shine, I think, at times, including like Miles Teller's character, and so yeah, there's some differences in the film, and that's where kind of my mixed thing comes in. I feel like the first one is such a streamlined, kind of just fun thrill ride without any fat, and there's not really fat in this movie, but it's obviously a longer movie. They the romance. As much as I love Jennifer Connelly, she's beautiful, I could care less about that whole storyline, you know, her and her daughter and everything like that.
Well,
I think that was kind of like filler.
I think that was kind of the point. They didn't want to drag out a romance drama in this movie, so they just kind of had him with her, and like that was that. There was no stakes in that relationship. I kind of like that.
I do appreciate like from a screenwriting standpoint that like they help fill the gap of they already knew each other and stuff, so we didn't have to have this whole meet cute necessarily. I mean, you still get it, but you don't have to have them. This is a new relationship blossoming. They just start one over again, and that worked fine for me, just to get us moving in terms of the story. But my main gripe about why I would say it's mixed is the beats in it that are so similar to the original. And every sequel has this, so it's kind of like I should gripe about this every time I watch a sequel that is kind of paying this much tribute to its, you know, its origins. But there was a lot of moments in it where it was just like, oh, and now he'll do the flyby, and oh, and now the, you know, the captain guy is going to say this line because he said it in the original one. And so that's where my mixed element comes out of, just like it's a little bit too much of playing the same. The whole Iceman character, what's his name, Hangman or something, the second you see him, it's just like the whole setup, nothing's very different about him throughout the movie than him being Iceman, but he's not Iceman.
Can I interject really quickly? I only have one thing to say because I'm writing a small video about this now. The Hangman character, if you really think about it and sit on it, he's presented as an Iceman character because he's a slight antagonist to Rooster. But if you watch the movie again, John, he is the younger version of Maverick from the first movie, almost through and through. The cockiness, the behaviors, they don't give him his own story, so you don't see what he's doing outside of just being a cocky guy. But to me, he's written more like Maverick.
I can see that. I mean, as you pointed out, I could see that. But you know, while watching it, you still just get those instant flashes of this is your Iceman character, and you know, it still is all the way through the end of the film to me.
Sure.
And okay, and so Rooster, I love Miles Teller, but Rooster is just too much a facsimile of his dad, down to the look and everything. It's like I turned to you and told you how much I liked that you actually see the footage of the young kid. It reminded me that you actually see him as a boy, and he was old enough to take in a lot of his dad's mannerisms and things that he loved about his dad. And there's lots of pictures of his dad. So emulating his dad is not necessarily the problem, but it just feels a little bit movie to me how much they try to make him do things and be like his dad, down to singing the same song and everything. I enjoyed the hell out of this movie, but I struggle with saying I would put this on what I would call a best picture list. And so that's where I want to bring up my mixed feelings about it, because I really do like the movie. It was super entertaining. The ending is freaking awesome. I loved, you know, even though it's pretty predictable, you know, who's going to save who at what moments and stuff like that. There was a moment there where I thought maybe Tom Cruise might die. So
me too.
I love the ending. They and the realism of the aerial photography and stuff helps pay all that off. So I really did like the movie, but I would struggle putting it on best picture list because it had these beats that just seemed so obvious and Hollywood to me. And there's one more gripe. Hollywood. That's a fucking
was not in the movie.
A great call sign. I did not walk away liking really any of these guys' call signs. They sounded cheesy to me.
Very generic. Very generic.
Yeah, like couldn't at least one of them be a little bit more cooler or memorable? None of them.
I thought it was a wasted opportunity to have the only female pilot's call sign be Phoenix when it could have been something really interesting.
And I didn't have a problem with, you know, any of those characters per se. Like I still enjoyed their banter and that camaraderie and stuff like that.
Sure.
The bar scene still works for me. But there's just kind of a little layer of Hollywood cheese, which is weird. The first movie is super 80s cheese to some degree, but it's got that Tony Scott edge that the movie is missing, in my opinion.
Yes,
there's something about it.
It's definitely missing the Tony Scott sensibilities and craftsmanship but it has its own. But it's just
it does have its own. So I really enjoyed it, but I do have to say I'm a little bit mixed. Like I want to like it more, but I wouldn't really call it a best picture for me because we'll have to see. There's hardly anything good these days, so it probably would be a best picture for me these days. But
mixed usually insinuates that you're 50-50. You sound more positive on it to me than negative.
Well, if I had to give it a score, it would it'd be on the positive side. So let's
go see it again, man. Let's go see it again.
I want to see it in IMAX. I wanted to see it originally, and my opportunity to see it was sneaking in after Jurassic Dominion. So just snuck in there and watched it. And just for everyone listening, Ben, the couple that was sitting in the top row behind us, I think started having sex after you left.
Awesome. You know what? If you're gonna
that
have
was my
sex
experience
in
of
any
seeing
movie,
Top Gun.
I'm sure there was couples having sex in 1986 during the original Top Gun as well. So that's great.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. And like I said, I'm really happy to see it making money because I don't know, if we're seeing the theater. It's an IP that deserves it because it took the time and didn't just put out a piece of shit like, here's the next entry in this ever long series that no one cares about. I don't know, that not everything does that, but very few of the IPs that we're forced to just keep seeing brought back, or even if they're brought back like a Halloween or something where it's maybe it lay dormant for a while, but they brought it back with original stars, all this legacy stuff. We're going to get into a movie right now with Jurassic Park Dominion that has a lot of legacy stars. It's a new thing to kind of do this thing 30 years later and make sure you've got all these people coming back to the cinema. And this one did it right. So if that's what everyone in Hollywood's going to chase right now as their way of making money, then I've got to give, Top Gun Maverick its credit for doing it right. If this is what we have to sit through, every movie being somewhat of a repeat, then do it right. Do a good repeat.
Yeah. And, you didn't let me down, John. I knew, like, when I was in the theater with two guys who are, they're movie buffs in their own right, but probably not to the extent that you and I are. And when I saw the Don Simpson, Jerry Bruckheimer credit pop up, it made me jump. I was like, oh, that's so great. And I loved it. Noticed it immediately.
Super take back. And I was almost bummed at the end. I was staying in, and they didn't immediately put something about Tony Scott as the first thing. They ran through a bunch of credits, and I was like, wait a minute. Isn't there going to be a Tony Scott thing? But they still had the airplane.
Sir, they did not forget.
They're still got the airplane flying towards the sun. So I was still watching, and then they brought it up. So I was like,
dude, and there's an amazing interview with Val Kilmer from 2013, like way before the throat cancer. Because Val Kilmer was a big Tony Scott player. He did a lot of Tony Scott films.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah.
And they asked him, that was only a year after Tony Scott's death, and Val Kilmer was just. It's a great, if you find it on YouTube, it's just Val Kilmer talking about Tony Scott. It's so great.
I have to look it up. Well, I kind of wish we could see what this would have been as the Tony Scott film.
We're robbed of many years of Tony Scott movies for sure.
I think, Tom Cruise did 2 films with him. And so if there was the opportunity for them to get back together and do this at this stage of Tom Cruise's career, where he takes it to that next level and does things for real, not that I'm sure he did some real driving and some real, crazy stuff back with the original Top Gun, but where he's at now, where he makes it real. He has to do it himself and make sure his face is right there on camera doing it.
And how fucking cool are those shots, man, where they're taking off of the flight deck and you just see that impact.
But I would love to have seen I think it would have been a chance to elevate Tony Scott back into a certain level of filmmaking that he was being sidelined from. And so
honestly, dude, this movie would have been Tony Scott's what do you call it? Mad Max Fury Road.
Yeah, totally.
Like coming back in his 70s and just doing all practical stuff. Yeah, it could have been. But I think Joseph Kosinski did a bang up job, and
did a great job.
Did a great job. He's a good director, man.
Yeah. I've enjoyed his work already up to this point. So we'll see. I think we're gonna get a sequel.
I hope not.
It feels like the fact that they left it, with so many people. I think I've already spoiled the movie a little bit. did I spoil it? Is it okay for me to say things that are spoilerish on here?
Yeah, fuck yeah.
Okay, the fact that no one dies.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised.
The door is open, and but that's a little bit of my letdown. Like because honestly, that's the one thing I thought they were setting us up, that Bob was Goose.
But he's a rear. He's a rear though, so yeah.
Well, that's what Goose is.
Oh, right. Sorry.
Goose. Yeah, Bob was Goose. And so that's the one thing that like I was expecting them to do beat for beat that they didn't pull off. Instead, they just survive. But they still are the ones who have a mishap and crash. It's Bob and Phoenix or whatever.
Yeah.
So they should have died, and that would have made the movie more impactful. Instead, they kill Val Kilmer. But yeah, so
another great kind of tear-jerking scene, though. Really, really well done.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we're gonna get a sequel with the money it's made. I mean, Tom Cruise is pretty smart right now. I don't know. I mean, the way he's pumping out these Mission Impossibles, I get the feeling he'll say, let's write it and make it good, but let's make another one maybe 5 years down the road. He won't rush it, but I think he might say, let's make it, especially if all it means is he primarily has to. Well, I'm throwing it out there like is not taxing on your body more than hanging from wires and doing all the other shit he does. But yeah, I don't know which one's more taxing, but he might be like, I could still sit in the cockpit when I'm 65 or whatever.
Well, yeah, I mean, the dude looks 45. So it's like, technically he's living on a different wavelength than everybody else is with time. So
he really is. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if they use any special effects in the football scene, but they all look pretty damn good out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess if we're talking box office, I would like to throw out to you. Do you think that this will end up being the top box office of the year?
Yes.
Or do you think something has a chance to beat it this year?
No. Well, Avatar is the only thing. Avatar is if Avatar is great, it's going to destroy this movie. If Avatar is subpar, it might be around the same. And if Avatar is bad, it won't. It's all on Avatar though, but it's going to beat Doctor Strange tomorrow morning. So it's already going to be the highest grossing movie of the year tomorrow. So
this movie has, people love it and people want to talk about it and people want to revisit it. You and I are both talking about trying to go see it and pay more for it and see it in IMAX. So yeah, it's going to keep making money and it deserves to.
Okay. So guys, we're going to spoil the crap out of Jurassic World Domino or whatever it's called.
Let's knock them dominoes down.
And here to join John and I on the Weekly Gulp to talk about it. She's been on the show a few times. She's amazing. It's Kat. Hi, Kat. Thank you.
Hi, thanks for having me on the show.
Oh my God, I'm so happy to have you on the Weekly Gulp. Hopefully there'll be much more coming. You've always been great on the show. You always kind of remind me of John the way you critique movies, which is why I admire the way you critique movies, because he's great at it, and so are you. You guys are detailed, and you make me feel silly sometimes.
Thank you for the praise. For the praise.
It's praise and it's self-deprecating, but that's fine. Yeah. Okay, so Kat, when did you see? I think you saw it right when I did, right? Opening the Thursday night showing. Is that correct?
Yeah, I saw that with a double feature with the original film.
Yeah. Oh shit! With the original Jurassic Park.
Yes.
Oh my God, that must have just been night and day for you.
Yeah, for sure.
But well, I guess that makes sense though, because you have the original cast back, which is kind of cool. So everybody, you've been warned. Spoilers are coming for Jurassic World Dominion. Because
spoilers, yeah. Ben, spoilers means I remember the movie.
I know, I dude. Honestly, I'm glad we're doing this now, because if we waited a few more days, I would not even know what to say.
I'll try and spoil it, but that means I got to remember it. That's
but
right.
Let's go around. I'm gonna start with Kat. So I did see that you posted something that you liked it more than the other of this new trilogy, and I guess we'd call it a new trilogy. So tell me what you thought of this movie.
So the bar is set really low by all three of these new films. Mostly because they said everything they needed to say about this concept back in the first movie. So it's like, okay, there's too much CGI off the top. That's just a lot of the CGI doesn't look that good.
No.
There's some inconsistencies. I think the only time I thought the CG looked good was probably in the very first scene with Blue, And then after that, it just kind of felt like everything wasn't rendered long enough. And then there's scenes where you easily could have used animatronics, like with the Dilophosaurus. It's like, why are the 3 Dilophosaurus CG? I don't get it. So there's that. And having the original cast back was fun, but it relies way too much on nostalgia. Like every single time, like, why are they redoing the shot of Ellie like jaw dropping when they're taking her glasses off to look at a field of like empty waste? Like, really? So it's like you kind of switch your brain off while you're watching it. And
that is Ellie Sattler's iconic take off the sunglasses look, Kat.
Right, but that's the only reason why it's there. It doesn't really, it's sort of like, why does Dodson have the Barbasol can? So why would he have bothered collecting that? Like, nobody would have been able to trace that back to him.
Totally.
And he has it like on display on the shelf, like he's proud of it. And it's like, okay, are you going to bring that back around? Or the original 3 going to find out that he's the one who sabotaged the park? Because
I think that was the way to tell people that that's the Dodson, even though it's played by a different actor. That's the guy that gave Nedry the can.
Right. And it's like, yeah, because it's true. People probably won't remember him. And I admit that
I didn't. It flew over my head completely.
Okay, yeah. See, him and Biosyn obviously were a lot bigger in the first 2 books, and the notion that he's trying to eradicate the world's food supply to replace it with his own is on track with how evil he is in the books as well, where he engineers a aerosol form of the rabies virus and wants to test it out just to see if it would work because he's that messed up. But I figured that it was going to explore the fact that Dodson and Grant had an antagonistic relationship in the books, and it's like, there's no real reason for him to be there. He's like, people have been saying a lot, he's like the Apple CEO guy. And I'm like, okay, so there's that. But the pacing was fine. I like that it doesn't really focus that much on Owen and Claire because I find them very bland and forgettable. And they bring back the stupid clone person. It's like, okay, Dr. Wu has a redemptive arc, which is totally unearned and just doesn't make any sense at all. But I mean, compared against the first Jurassic World, you had those 2 obnoxious kids as main characters, which just really dragged it down a lot. And then the Fallen Kingdom, which is just hot garbage. But this one, it's like, yeah, I could switch my brain off and be entertained by the original 3 being back and Alan Grant doing his best Indiana Jones imitation in a ridiculous way. But so yeah, there's that. It really didn't, as many people have said, not really cashing in on what the implication was for what this movie was going to be. Like the idea that the ecosystem is now going to be disrupted. You have humans and dinosaurs side by side. And yet this whole Biosyn plot really has nothing to do with that. It's like a one-off that I don't really know what they were trying, because they already knew going into it that none of the cast, like Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard and the original 3 have all said they're not coming back for another one. And that they knew that going into the movie. So it's like, why not wrap up the concepts that you started with Dominion? And instead it's kind of, it's just another, it's
because Kat, why create a good story around that when you can give us a 45-second montage at the end of the movie to show dinosaurs swimming with whales and dinosaurs running with elephants? That's how lazy this was.
Yeah.
I think John and I agree with you completely about like, why is this movie about a bug-demic when you have dinosaurs running around the world? How come that wasn't the sole focus of the movie? It was just kind of in the background that there's dinosaurs everywhere. And anyway, John,
yeah, that should have been the storyline for the last 3 movies. At least by the time we got to the second one. That's the name Jurassic World. It's supposed to imply that they're now, here in the world at large. And yeah, just they've squandered that opportunity now. That we really were supposed to get that back in Lost World in the second Jurassic Park film. So this series as a whole has really only the first film is a classic, great science fiction monster movie, and the rest are just, cashing in on a popular IP, cashing in on what kids will always want to see. And, big kids at heart like ourselves will always want to see dinosaurs on screen, dinosaur carnage. And we get that with every film, but they're not good stories. They haven't taken the time to write a good screenplay for a single one of these sequels. And it's sad. I wasn't expecting much out of this movie. And compared to that last film, Fallen Kingdom, I actually did find it more entertaining than that one, because that one was super boring. And just spinning its wheels in terms of the storytelling, like we still didn't get to where we want to be with dinosaurs in the world at large. So this one has that same fault. It has many of the faults of Fallen Kingdom, but it's got some highlights, like bringing back the original cast. They do just rely on nostalgia for their roles to be entertaining, but that can often be entertaining. It's what Ben and I were just talking about Top Gun, sequel that comes out 35 years later and tries to bring back cast members or tries to bring back moments that feel nostalgic, and it does it right. It took the time to actually put something behind why certain characters are still in the film 35 years later, or why we're still discussing something that happened 35 years ago. And this one, it's just shoehorned in. But there's so many of these movies these days, like Scream, for example. A lot of the press right now talking about a legacy character not going to return for the next sequel, but she was wasted in the last film anyway. So all these movies now, which is all we seem to get, is now legacy sequels, is now the hot property. I actually think that this Jurassic Park Dominion, and having those three characters, they were actually fun to watch almost the whole time that they were on screen. So I do actually give it some credit with when it lines up with all of these kind of boring sequels that have come out where they shoehorn in characters from 35 years ago. That's exactly what they do here, but I'm still entertained.
I give it credit. So for me, expectations of Dr. Ian Malcolm, this movie gets a 9 because he gave me exactly what I wanted from him in a 2022 version of him. He's commentating on the movie, talking about how ridiculous it is in almost every line of dialogue he has in the third act of this movie. And I found that hilarious. And the legacy characters for me are the only thing I liked about this movie. There was actually some fun, cool, new, like scary looking dinosaur concepts that I thought were kind of cool. The ones in the caves that kind of have like alligator bodies with the big fin. I mean, they're all worthless and meaningless, and they mean nothing to the story. But the one with the feathers that's really angry and hardcore that goes under the water, those are all just set pieces though, and they don't matter and they don't mean anything. There's no new characters. Like, I agree with you, Kat. Like, for me to create a character that Chris Pratt is going to play that is just forgettable, that's hard to do, because Chris Pratt, forget about what people talk about him on Twitter or whatever, he's always brings something very charming and interesting to his characters. And there's just nothing with the Owen Grady character after the first movie. There's just nothing there. And Bryce Dallas Howard's just like fucking cardboard. Like, she's fine, she's talented, whatever, but I don't get it. Like, I wanted Alan Grant, I wanted Ellie, and I wanted Malcolm, and I got that. And I
wonder if that's the reason why they didn't put much focus on Owen and Claire this time around.
I think so because honestly, I think the legacy characters have more screen time than they do.
Usually in these legacy sequels, or whatever you want to call them, they don't introduce the legacy characters so much later in the movie, but they just
a la Ghostbusters Afterlife, where they just appear out of fucking nowhere.
But they put Alan and Ellie like right up front within like the first 15 minutes or so, because it's like they conscientiously know that the audience doesn't care about these other characters.
But I also do feel like the Ellie Sattler and Alan Grant to me doesn't feel exactly like Alan Grant, but that's okay because he's older, and it makes sense that, like, they do kind of hammer you over the head that he's kind of been living this life alone and stuff. And I think they tried to kind of fix something that people were confused about. and just bear with me, guys. This could be weird, but the way that Maz Kanata hands Chewie his medal at the end of whatever that movie was called, Rise of the Skywalker, they have Ellie Sattler and Alan Grant finally get together at the end of this, and I think that was something that people were always so confused about from the first movie. Were they together? Were they not together? He was like 18 years older than her, and it was always kind of implied that they weren't together. And then obviously in that 2-minute scene you see in Jurassic Park 3, she's married with kids. But this movie wanted to like right a wrong or right something that people didn't understand, which is like they do have not a history together. It was kind of a will they, won't they, Sam and Diane, Mulder and Scully type of thing. So it gives you that little shoehorn ending where they're like, okay, well, now they're together because they're kissing. I know that's a small thing and it's hardly worth talking about while we're talking about this movie, but I did kind of wonder if they were going to address that.
That wasn't something I was really paying close attention
I
to.
know. It's just a small.
No. I mean, like, as you pointed out, it's very true. The whole like Sam and Diane and Mulder and Scully. If we had them as characters across more of the films, then yeah, this would be like, because those ones they drew it out for a long time.
Yeah.
But I always kind of watched the first film fully getting that they were in a relationship. I know that they didn't have much on screen,
They never kiss or anything. Yeah.
They didn't kiss or anything, but I still, I just thought that they were kind of reserved in that way, or the fact that he was older, he didn't want to, look strange, like trying to grab onto her. There just wasn't really moments in that film. They're separated and things like that. But yeah, no, I get that that's, as a legacy moment, it's a payoff that some fans want to see. I just personally, like, I always got that they had a relationship early on, and this is where they're at in their lives now. So it wasn't really like a moment I was waiting to see if it would happen. But I totally get that you could picture it that way, the way it's set up in the first film.
Well, yeah, because in the first movie, the whole joke is that she keeps egging him on about having kids, and that kids aren't as annoying as he thinks they are. She's the one who wants him to ride in the car with the kids, all this kind of stuff. And when Malcolm asks about when they're in the car at night and he asks about Dr. Sattler, he's like, she isn't like available, is she? And Alan's immediately defensive about it. He's like, why? And then Malcolm's like, oh, I'm sorry. He's like, and he says, you two are, and Grant's like, yeah. So he confirms that they are in a relationship in the original movie.
Yeah.
But
they
you're
play
right,
off a lot of that in this movie.
Because
there's so many moments in this movie where Alan Grant is so uncomfortable with Malcolm touching Sadler, the fact that they were talking ahead before,
Right.
Yeah, they do play up on that again, which is great. Those little legacy moments in this film specifically, because they hadn't been, these characters hadn't come back together. As much as they're just plays on nostalgia, I still appreciated having those little moments to enjoy in whatever else you get out of this film.
Oh yeah, like when Ellie first tells Malcolm what her problem is with Biosyn, and he just gives this whole diatribe like, hey, I've been telling everybody for years, like, this is just what's going to happen. And she's like, honestly, Ian, that's bullshit. And I'm like, I love that, because that totally is an Ian Malcolm thing to say, even though he's, in on it. But yeah, those are the little moments that I think it makes the movie watchable as long as it is. Even though, strangely, it didn't feel that long to me, even though it's apparently the longest in all of them. But
yeah, it didn't feel overly long to me. We were actually laughing it up, and we were laughing it up largely to a character that we haven't mentioned yet, which is Campbell Scott. Well, I guess we mentioned him, but we didn't mention the actor. Campbell Scott, what is it, Dodson? Is that the character?
Yeah, he plays Dodson, and his decisions in this movie were just so great.
Yeah, I was having a blast every time he was on screen with his just kind of weird mannerisms and just everything about the way that he approached this role.
You and I, John, were like, oh, please don't die, because even though he's the villain, we just like love his character.
Yeah. And then they don't kill, if we're spoiling things, they don't kill any of the other characters. They make sure that for 45 minutes of the end of this movie, they constantly have these group shots with everybody just so we can make sure no one's died yet. And then you get all the way to the end and no one dies. It's like, come on. We need these to be monster movies. That's my problem.
Okay, well, John, who would you have wanted to die? Like, that's a good question.
Okay, I did think that they were, I think a more interesting way to go with it was that the guy who was supposed to show them around the facility, I forget his name, Ramsey, I think it was.
Good new. He's probably the only good new character.
Well, and I thought that he was going to turn on them, that he was actually trying to get them to admit that they've been sneaking around. And right in front of them, just and be like, yeah, we've got the whatever they were searching for. I can't remember at this point.
I think they kept that ambiguous throughout. Where is he good or is he bad?
Yeah. So I was hoping he would turn out to be bad, and therefore we'd at least have somebody who would get killed. But he didn't. He was good, and so therefore, once it was confirmed that he was totally on their side, I think when he turns on Campbell Scott's character, then I was like, great, he's probably not going to die either. Like it became kind of obvious that everyone was being kept alive, even to the end. I mean, you got your little girl, you got your family unit. None of them are going to die, unless it was the pilot or this Ramsey character or Dr. Wu, and they kept all of them alive. I was pissed.
Yeah, Dr. Wu, I felt should definitely have been killed off by the Raptors like he was in the book.
Definitely died. Yeah,
Dr. Wu. Just like in the book, because and that's another thing I thought this movie was going to do. It's like, okay, you have Malcolm there, you have Dr. Wu there. They're going to bring this back around to Malcolm's whole life finds a way type thing, because Dr. Wu's been like, in a way, the villain of this whole new 3 movies. Like in the first Jurassic World, when Masrani is giving him crap about how the dinosaurs are out of control, he's like, dude, you wanted bigger teeth, you wanted this or that. I'm like, bull, you did it because you wanted to do it. And then in the next one, he's auctioning off the dinosaurs and is in favor of doing that. And now in the third one, it's not that he's upset that they're even trying to create this famine or whatever. It's just that it's getting out of control. It's like, wait a minute, you were on board with helping this guy wipe out most of the world's food supply, and it's only because the guy's evil, but they're trying to play him like this really nice, sweet, and warm guy. And it's like, this redemption arc is not earned. He needs to die.
It's not earned, and they try to imply that the 4-year time gap between Fallen Shithouse and this movie, he had kind of a change of heart, but now he's kind of stuck in this situation. But there's nothing to imply that he's stuck in this situation. He's still just doing his research as he wants to do.
Because he joined Biosyn after that. It's like, so what? I don't know where they were going with that. And it's like, you had the opportunity with the whole, the whole life finds it, like, tie this back into the original movie and why Malcolm has been pushing this since the beginning.
Well, let's talk about how they retcon. Okay, so this is a good segue, because Dr. Wu is obviously, like, for some reason he has a real big soft spot for the alien kid, or not alien, whatever, the clone kid. I don't even know her name. She's a very forgettable character. The clone kid.
Daisy.
Yeah. So am I crazy, guys? They retconned her story. Like, right? Like, wasn't Lockhart made her because he missed his daughter? But then no, she's actually his granddaughter. Like, why did they retcon that? I don't understand why they changed that. She was originally a clone copy of his daughter because he missed his daughter, but then they totally did a very obvious retcon. I was gasping in the theater, and I think other people were too. We're like, what the fuck is going on? Like, so now she actually is a regular daughter. She just had her genes changed or whatever.
Ben, you brought it up before. It's the new Star Wars trilogy syndrome. It's the Rise of Skywalker syndrome.
This trilogy is very comparable.
You have it play out in a similar way, where the director of the first film returns to the third film, finding whatever storyline had been started in the first film in shambles after the second film, and they try and retcon a whole bunch of stuff just to give you some supposed exciting conclusion that feels like a giant mess. I feel like those trilogies play out exactly the same, where that first film was kind of fun with the promise of new films in this series that we this world that we like to come back to, and then we just get a couple more trash films that have messy stories that don't even connect to each other. And
then again, I even after with the first one, I couldn't see where the story would go anyway. It's like, okay, so there's dinosaurs in the world, but what's your antecedent going to be for continuing this story? Like, it's like, other than having B monster movies, kind of like Jurassic Park 3, there was no real story there either. It's just, we need to get them back to the island. We'll have this little thing be the
the poaching concept was an interesting concept, that there's poachers. And you would have thought, like, Owen Grady's character. I mean, and they touch on that for like 5 minutes in the opening of this movie. Right. But that could have been a very interesting way to go with this movie. It's like, how do we control this situation? Like, we have to live amongst these things, but they're obviously superior in size but we can't have people just killing them randomly. And that could have been a really cool movie. I don't know about you, Kat, but when me and John were watching it and they get to I call it the Mos Eisley Dino Cantina scene, where it's just the hokiest fucking scene in the movie, where you get this beautiful woman who's just a fucking Bond villain, and she's got the laser pointer.
Oh shit, I forgot about the Bond villain. Yeah.
Dude, that scene, I was laughing hysterically when it was supposed to be, I think, intense, but
Nothing in this movie was intense. It was falls flat every action.
There's one intense scene, and that's when that feathered giant dino is going after Claire, and she goes under the water in that swamp. It was slightly intense.
Yeah, it was a good scene. I don't know. I didn't actually feel, scared for myself or anything, but I did enjoy it.
That's good. You didn't feel scared for yourself.
Well, it wasn't actually making real impact on me, but I was enjoying the scene. But
yeah, because it's like
it wasn't actually visceral.
Because watching the first one in the theater right before that, and you're watching the T-Rex paddock scene when it's coming down on the flipped car, and then you're watching this scene with Claire in the water, and it's like, this is CG. This is like a cartoon. There's no, it doesn't feel like, there's no intensity. It doesn't feel like there's anything here. Same thing when I saw the Nedry scene with the Dilophosaurus. I'm like, that was the most realistic looking dinosaur to me in all 6 of the movies.
I completely agree.
And then here's Dotson with 3 of them, and and you knew that was going to happen the moment they said Dotson was going to be in the movie. Of course they're going to kill him with the Dilophosaurus. But there's 3 of them, and again, it's like a cartoon. It's like, why? And it strips the intensity out of it. And like you said, it's overstuffed with so many different ideas. Oh, here's the poaching thing here. We now have raptors which could specifically target people with laser pointers. It's trying to jumble all this different stuff. And
it's trying to add sci-fi elements to play up, that this is a series that is supposed to be in the sci-fi genre. Yeah. I think they should just stick to monster movies. Those, the best ones are the ones that just play like monster movies. This 6th film is just a rehash of them in another facility. Like at this point, they really have almost every single time just been in the facility or on an isolated island.
Oh, even when they're trying to turn the power back on, the computer thing looks the same as the one in the original movie. It's like,
yeah, and they even have Ian Malcolm like on headset.
Yep.
But have you guys noticed that after the second movie, every movie has just had the biggest boner for creating a bigger, badder, scarier dinosaur T-Rex than the T-Rex, but nothing compares to that amazing T-Rex design, the sound design.
Well, Stan Winston,
electronics of that head. It's
I don't know
incredible. And this movie had one of the weakest of the new big baddies. I don't even remember what that thing looks like, but to me, it didn't even look as big as the T-Rex to me.
There's nothing to. I didn't think there was anything to the new big bads in any of these 3 movies. I mean, at least in Jurassic Park 3, they picked a real dinosaur, Spinosaurus.
Which looks kind of cool, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, but here it's just like another bland CG mess.
I will say, well, technically the T-Rex is the character that has shown up in the most Jurassic Park films.
Yeah.
Because they're saying it's the same T-Rex. And I don't need that. Like, it doesn't need to be the same T-Rex for my enjoyment. In fact, it kind of just makes it silly at this point that's the same T-Rex that's gone through all these different things.
It made sense in Jurassic World, the first one, where you see the scars and you're like, okay, here's a reintroduction to this one. But the one in Jurassic Park 3 was a different one, and it obviously dies pretty fast. But
that's because because the Jurassic Park 2 and 3 were on a different island as well.
Oh, see, I can't even keep them straight.
That's right. There's Isla Nublar and
Isla Sorna is the island from films 2 and 3.
I'm with John. I can't fucking keep up with this shit.
But Ben, we did talk about. I appreciate, like, out of all these films, they've. Out of 6 films, they often just introduce maybe one new dinosaur. I mean, not every film is only one new dinosaur, but I feel like they've had opportunity to show us all kinds of dinosaurs up to this point. And I'd say this is one film that actually does show you a lot of different dinosaurs throughout.
Yes.
And they're not all used all that great, but a few of them are. And like Ben, you mentioned the ones in the cave with those crazy spines. I remember having toys of those when I was a kid, so it was cool to finally see that on the screen and actually have a kind of a cool little scene. And then the standout for me is the one with the Freddy Krueger claws, that bird looking one
Yeah,
actually is
that was a great one. That's another real dinosaur. I can't remember its name, but that
Yeah.
was the MVP.
So out of 6 films, I don't know where exactly in the ranking I would put this one, but I would put it ahead of maybe 2 or 3 other films in the series, just because it does have some cool dinosaurs. I don't know. Once I see it again, I'll probably be like, no, this is still right there at the bottom with Fallen Kingdom. But there were things about this that I think
that movie
kind of
is atrocious.
no. It's better than that. I know that, but
It's more
I don't know if I
entertaining
would.
than that. It's
I don't
just
know if
as
I would consider
bad,
it
but
better
at
than
least
any of
it's
the others.
yeah.
But anyway, I appreciate all the dinosaurs that are in it, and that they were real dinosaurs instead of creating new ones, which in the last 2 films where they've done that, it's just kind of been a wasted opportunity. It's not as interesting to see that. I want to see something from my childhood or something from reality come to life on the screen. That's the magic of the original. And even though they're not going to put the time in and have the Stan Winston effects that make us believe it, at least bring to life a dinosaur that we haven't seen on screen yet, a real dinosaur, not some fake monster.
Well, the problem, John, with 5 movies that took place after Jurassic Park, the original, is we've already seen it. And the best you're ever going to see is that first movie, visually, creatively. I mean, I love that Jurassic World tried back in 2015 to even say, like, everyone's sick of dinosaurs. We've seen this. And I like that the movie kind of played on that a little bit. And it was like, I guess we have to create something new. And the Indominus Rex is kind of cool looking, I guess. I mean, it was really stupid in the end that it talks to raptors. but that's the problem with all of these sequels. And that's why the first one is a masterpiece of a film. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. And every other sequel is not even, it wouldn't be in my top 500.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all downhill after 1993.
Yeah. I mean, you have Spielberg behind it. Spielberg is a master filmmaker of so many different genres, but one that I think he excels beyond so many, almost anybody else who's ever attempted it is monster movies. His 2 monster movies are 2 of the top monster movies. If you were to pick a list in that genre, I think both Jurassic Park and Jaws would be on that list. And so that has a lot to do with it. I know we did get another film in the series from him, and it's very disappointing that it isn't a great monster film or a great film in any respect.
Not a fan of that movie at all. Yeah.
I think if they ever make anything in the Jurassic Park series or world again, whether it's got Spielberg or any other filmmaker, if they wait a long time and try and reboot it, whatever, you just got to make like a serious, scary monster movie. That's it. Nothing else. Don't add too much. Don't make it too big of a world yet. I know that the first film is easy to start off small, but just stay small for a long time, and it can stay visceral and exciting, because the action scenes in Jurassic Park are like 2 dinosaurs in a kitchen chasing kids, but they're way more exciting than anything you get in 6 other films where the whole world is overrun by dinosaurs.
The CGI raptors in that kitchen scene 27 years ago or whatever it was, 29 years ago, look better than the CGI raptors in this movie.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it. It's like even in the T-Rex paddock sequence where it switches back and forth between CG and animatronics, and it's seamless. It's still amazing and holds up. And it's like here,
we don't need raptors in a Bond movie, like globe trotting to Milan,
this is a Bourne movie. This was Jason Bourne fighting off. That was the greatest thing ever. It was Jason Bourne.
It was Velocity Bourne right through the window.
Exactly.
I gotta say though, I was having fun during that scene with Owen Grady on the motorcycle. Like, it was so ludicrous and stupid, but I just was like, oh, this is such great schlock. It's such great schlock.
And I was right there with you, Ben. We actually had a great time watching this movie, but if they could go back to their roots and just make a scary, streamlined monster movie about dinosaurs loose wherever in a facility or somehow in the world, but don't make it too big. It could be scary and exciting and bring those practical effects. That's the most important thing as well.
But instead, we have to go back to a facility, and we have to go up corridors and climb elevators and climb ladders and
that's another thing. It's like they're spending so much time in this movie rushing to all these different set pieces that none of them really stand out. It's like the second movie like the second one, The Lost World, has that great scene with the trailers going over the cliff. That, and because that's animatronic, you're seeing that like, okay, that's good, because that, granted, that's Spielberg.
That's the best scene in that movie, by the way.
Exactly. That was about, I like that movie up until the climax, because the climax is so tonally off and wrong for what the rest of that movie is. Yeah. But the third one doesn't really have any big set piece in particular. Like maybe the pterodon, Kate, maybe.
I love that scene.
That was a good scene. I mean, that was a good scene because they actually, again, use mostly animatronics and such. But all three of these Jurassic World movies don't really have a big central set piece where they spent a lot of time and care on it. It's just one CG extravaganza to the next. And I'm looking at the budgets of these movies, and they're about roughly 150, 160 million each. And I'm thinking you probably needed to spend another 60, 70 million on rendering.
Okay, guys. So you've heard our thoughts on Jurassic World Domino. So let's rank these movies. John, how would you rank? We're doing all six. Forget about two separate trilogies. Let's just talk about all six of these movies.
I'm going to start from the top, because I think, most of us and everyone will know what the top film's going to be.
I don't think anyone's going to have a different first movie. But.
No, maybe someone's going to be a shocker, but I'm not going to be that one. I am picking Jurassic Park, the original. I think, Ben, you mentioned that might be in your top like 20 or something like that. I think it might fall in there for me too. My top 20 favorite movies of all time. It's a stone cold classic. It's freaking amazing. My second film, I haven't really thought this through, but my second film, I'd probably say, would be Jurassic World. That one was still fun. First one of the new trilogy. It was still fun. We maybe had the promise of some good Jurassic Park films to come, because that one was at least entertaining. I think they spent a little more time on the special effects than we got in some of the sequels to the new ones. Didn't totally hate all the characters yet. They hadn't totally become complete waste of time. Because a lot of the rest of the films in the series aren't really that fun to revisit. So I think the only two that I probably would have fun revisiting is the first and then Jurassic World. My next one on the list is probably going to be Jurassic Park 3, just because it's short, quick, and you get a couple new monsters. I like the Spinosaurus. I like that you get pterodactyls. I'm just a fan of when they introduce some of those fan favorites from when you're a kid. So that one's probably my number 3. Number 4, I think, is going to have to be this new film. I really need to see it again, but at least you get some of the old characters back. There was some fun to be had there. There's some new dinosaurs. I don't know. I'm sure if I watch back to back this and the new one and Lost World, maybe I'd find ways to still want to consider The Lost World a better film, because you at least have a good filmmaker behind the camera. But I always kind of hate watching that movie. It bums me out.
Boring.
So it's boring. Lost World is going to fall to the 5th place. And that's going to leave the last film to be Fallen Kingdom, the worst, the one I would never watch again. And the only one that I don't own. I told you this, Ben, while we were watching the movies. I like to, own the DVD, even if it's a kind of a bad sequel. If I have all the other movies, I'll usually buy even the bad sequels to a lot of movies. I own Blade 3, stuff like that. So I never bought Fallen Kingdom. I just said, I don't care. I don't ever want to watch it. And I was so happy while we were watching the new one that they give you that short little recap, so you don't ever have to watch Fallen Kingdom. If you ever wanted to sit down and watch this whole series, you could actually skip Fallen Kingdom the way this new one gives you a little bit of that in the beginning. And so I will probably buy the new one and just put it in the collection and go, well, there's a missing chapter, but I don't really care. And that's rare for me.
I love how our review of Fallen Kingdom, one of the worst movies that we've reviewed, is one of our best reviewed. It's one of the best videos that we ever made. And we had these lovely comments where people saying your review is so much better than the movie.
For all time.
We dressed up like cavemen and we're running from dinosaurs while we're.
Yeah, it's a shame we couldn't do that one again for this one, but.
I'm going to let Kat go because, shocker, every single thing John just said, that's my exact order. So I don't need to comment on it. It's the same exact order I was going to say, John.
So the new movie for you comes in 4th. on the
Yeah,
list. Fourth best.
I kind of I have a really I kind of love Jurassic World. I think it's very fun, and I was glad it was made, and it seemed like there was time and care put into it. So I have Jurassic Park. The only Blu-rays I own are Jurassic Park and Jurassic World, because all the other ones to me are just not ones I want to buy.
Yeah.
But I agree with you 100% on everything you said. The Lost World is a downer. It's boring. How do you waste Vince Vaughn, man? Come on.
Nice. So we agree completely. All right.
Yeah,
Kat,
no, our lists are identical. So I'm gonna let Kat go.
Kat's gonna be the one that has Jurassic Park 3 as her favorite.
In last place, Fallen Kingdom. It was just terrible.
Yay!
In fifth place, Jurassic World, the first one, because I can't stand the kids. I've never been on board with this training raptors thing. I didn't find it very endearing that they're trying to get you to kind of root for Owen and Claire, and maybe they're gonna, they don't like each other, but they might get together at the end. And her running around in high heels, both literally and figuratively, but figuratively too. It's like, and I get it. They're trying to repeat the first movie, but it just didn't work for me. Fourth, Dominion. I mean, it's fun seeing those characters together again, but again, it's a schlocky CG, mess of a movie. Third, Jurassic Park 3. Because at least there's animatronics there, and there's at least some semblance of a more coherent story. Then The Lost World, which I like a lot more than most other people do. And then
Apparently.
The original is best, of course.
Wow. So I love it that the original trilogy, you have 1, 2, and 3 in that order. That's cool. No, dude, there's stuff to love. I hate to say about every one of these except for Fallen Kingdom. There's stuff to really indulge in, and I mean, come on, it's dinosaurs. But me and John Cat were having a conversation when we walked out of the theater about like, are they gonna now try to redo the first one, or what are they gonna do? Because they say this is the last one. Why not just write a brand new original story that?
It's Frank Marshall already confirmed. They asked him, "Are you going to do more?" Because it sounds like none of the cast want to come back, and he's like, "Well, we're going to sit down and see how this movie does, and we'll see what the future holds."
It's not going to do as well as they thought it was going to do. I'll tell you that.
No. But then again,
I am surprised how well it did, like 130 or 40.
Yeah, but that's good, but that's not
right. But Fallen Kingdom was so terrible, and it still somehow managed to make 1.3 billion, which I don't understand. So
yeah, I think people just, and
you know what it is.
I think the average audience will like this better.
It's the X-Men 3 syndrome. X-Men 3 was terrible, but X2 was so good. X-Men 3 made more money than 2 because people returned. It's one of those things where you're only as good as the movie before you. And Jurassic World was a crowd pleaser. It hit all the right marks,
I'm actually interested when this one comes out on DVD, when I buy it, the new one, Dominion. I would like to watch back-to-back Jurassic World and Dominion to see if it elevates a little bit. I mean, I know story-wise they're not really that well connected anyway. It's kind of a giant mess. But I think they both have a level of fun and silliness that would make them a nice double feature within this series compared to any other double feature within this series.
I agree. That's how I would like to watch it. And I almost think the filmmakers, you guys, knew that people hated Fallen Kingdom because they spend the first 5 minutes of this movie recapping that movie to where you almost don't have to rewatch it.
Previously on,
there's a volcano and dinosaurs died, and then they went to somebody's mansion and auctioned off whatever the fuck was going on.
And you know what? To be honest, I mean, not like this is the first movie to do that. The Friday 13th movies always had those stupid recaps, but I think it's a sign that the audience is so used to that kind of thing that they watch on streaming and at home of like previously on, that it's fine to start your movie with a previously on moment.
But how funny is that you just said that the Jurassic Park franchise has fallen so far that it's a Friday the 13th movie.
It's mimicking Friday the 13th. Yep. Hey, what are you trying to say about Friday the 13th, man?
I hope they stop or don't let Colin Trevorrow and all that creative team for this new trilogy touch it ever again.
I think they're gonna stop. I think they know, like, it's like, fuck, we're done with this shit. Like, again, 20 years down the road, they'll remake the original, which will suck, but
Well, At one point, James Cameron supposedly was trying to get involved in making a Jurassic Park, and he wanted to make it very much like Aliens and make it R-rated and make it very scary with raptors and things of that nature. So,
well, he still can. He just has to call it something else.
if they're going to make another Jurassic anything in the future, no matter how long, if it's something they make soon or 20 years in the future, I want it to just be a serious, scary ass monster movie. That's it.
Yeah.
Don't try and make it fun for the kids. Don't try and make it nostalgic. Don't try and bring back Chris Pratt 20 years from now like we're gonna care.
No,
None
but
of
you
that.
can bring back Jeff Goldblum though any day of the week.
Oh, of course.
I'm on board with that. That's true.
Okay, guys. Well, that was Jurassic World Dominion. Yeah, I still don't really understand the title of this movie, but I guess it makes sense. I'll have to get out my thesaurus or something to figure that shit out. But thank you, Kat, for coming on. Please, let's do more of these. Dude, you can man, you can come back anytime.
All right, guys. Great to talk to you guys. Always fun talking about movies. We'll catch up again. See y'all later.
All right, everyone. Thanks for listening or watching to the Weekly Gulp podcast. Thanks for making us part of your day. I am Ben, and that is Kat, and we drink your cinema, everyone. Thank you.